you got to realize that whatever you're doing, you're competing with somebody. What is it that gives you an advantage over your competition? Whatever you're good at, try to be great at it. And if you're great at it, good things will happen.
Maverick Podcast.
I'm far from average. That's why I had to come sit down and chop it up with DJ Maverick. They know my name from coast to coast and even in Dallas. I use my talent when I'm faced with a challenge. Gratitude strength is my magnet. Close your eyes and imagine. If you can see it in your mind, then you can have it.
Maverick Podcast.
Welcome, ladies and gentlemen. You could have been anywhere in the world, but you're here with us. This is the Maverick Podcast. I'm your host, DJ Maverick. Today, we have another super episode. We have filmmaker and also director of the OKCine Latino Film Festival, the one and only Rogelio Almeida. Welcome to the podcast.
Thank you, man. That was a great introduction, man.
Looking forward to it. We have so much to talk about. I think we should do sort of a download of OKCine Latino. How did it go this last time around? How did it go for you?
I think it was our 10th anniversary. Great films. We had an amazing range of films that we received the past season. So we had documentaries, short films, feature films, and we just had so many good films that were so different this time. So every year, I think the quality of films gets better and better and bigger. So we had a packed house. Lee Hernan was a performer. We kind of have like a halftime show. A lot of people loved that. We had food from Lupita's. So I mean, every year I think
it's better and better.
It gets better and better. Yeah. So 2025, man, it's gonna be super exciting. It's been a great journey for the past 10 years, and I think that looking at the future and the things that Cine Latino can do with the film education and the institute, and then just bringing those kids into a filmmaking path. Yeah, that's for me. That's the most important part of OKCine Latino. Creating that path for our young students to get into the filmmaking career. It's for me. It's such a proud moment when I see our students getting into OCCC or going into other schools like OCU and pursuing like a filmmaking degree. I mean, that's
amazing. So you've already done it long enough to where you've seen a student sort of go from your program all the way to college?
Yes. And then they finish college, and then now they're working on other projects and have those projects come back to OKCine Latino. So we had some projects from some of our students that graduated that have already come back as a filmmaker.
It's amazing.
Yes. So it's kind of full circle. And for us, that's what we started the film festival. We started the film festival with the idea and goals to elevate our filmmaking filmmakers here in our state, in our city, but also to create a path for our young filmmakers.
Yeah, to me, that's super rewarding, and just creating that awareness to where kids out there, they're like, hey, this is a possibility. Even though I'm here in OKC or whatever, I can compete with the big leagues, right? Like, that's pretty cool.
Yeah, and then now with social media and just technology in general, that's one of the things that have changed so much for filmmaking in general. Of course, there's more competition now, but also it's so much easier to reach your audience or reach, different audiences. Back in the day, I used to have to mail in a DVD screener to a film festival, and that was the only way that you could, submit films back in the day. And then, of course, now it's all with digital screenings, so you'll get a film festival like our film festival, where you get to see hundreds of films all at the comfort or your home as a judge. So our judges get to see all of the films. They don't have to get DVDs. They don't have to, do any of that. And then within the same platform, they can rate the films. And that's how we make our official selections.
Not only that, but the creation process, right? We were just talking about cameras versus iPhones, the new iPhone 16. Yeah. What do you think about it? I mean, it's pretty incredible what they're doing so far, right?
Oh, yeah. I mean, the way those cameras and not only the cameras, but the profiles that you can get in there, the type of options that you get to record, the 4K,
the Apple ProRes, right?
The Apple ProRes, it's unheard of. It's crazy. Like I remember, like even in some of these cameras, like the professional Sony or semi-professional Sony cameras, everything is encoded in H.264, so it's very compressed. So it's hard for you to go through a very processed editing system, to color code and do color correction. But with the iPhones out of the box, you get a Apple ProRes, which is a codec that it's so rich and so manageable, where you can add so much color and do so many adjustments. I mean, there are so many videos and short films that have been shot in iPhone 15 and iPhone 16 with the Apple ProRes codec, and they look amazing.
Yeah, definitely. And even like being able to recover like your highlights and everything. I mean, pretty much you can do whatever at this point, right?
Oh yeah. It's and again, we tell our students it's just a tool.
Right.
It ends up being about the story. Story, and how you tell your story. Because I'm sure, like, if you want to tell a story about a coming of age teenager or a drama about a family, there's so many things that have already been made. So it's about how you tell that story and how well you use those tools at your disposal. So,
and also learning the basics, right? Because you can recover the highlights or whatever, but it's still important to know about like the basic, like aperture, shutter speed, all that. You still want to know the foundational stuff, right?
Yeah, exactly. And then also, one of the greatest filmmakers of all time, Martin Scorsese, has said many times that the majority of the film's success depends on your casting.
Okay.
So if you have a good cast, you're gonna have a good film also. So it's not about there's no bad actors.
Right.
There's just bad castings.
I like that. That's pretty cool.
Yeah.
So if you were building like a camera, like, your dream camera, what would you build? For me, it would be internal storage. I still don't know why cameras don't have internal storage.
Yeah, the reason they don't have internal storage is the same thing with how just the amount of storage that they would need to be able to process this raw material. And it's not even raw, because even Apple ProRes, it's compressed.
Yeah,
but
and I see people put an external hard drive when they're shooting ProRes. They put a hard drive outside the iPhone.
Yeah, which I mean, and those so affordable nowadays. I remember like when the first Blackmagic 4K camera came out about 12 years ago, which I still have. I still own the original, the OG. We used to call it the kind of like a box, the camera box. It's just like shaped in a box, and it had an internal rechargeable battery, and you could put in an SSD, like just a regular SSD drive, and it would record into an SSD drive, and then you would plug in that SSD drive into your computer, and that's how you would download it and start editing. But it's just because of the amount of footage, like these Hollywood films, like the ones that shoot in iRealXs, and they're so large. Those files are so large that it's hard to just record internally. So
but I mean, even just give me like 1 terabyte or something. I mean, the iPhone could do it. Why not a camera, right?
Exactly. Yeah. iPhone, I think, is it 1 terabyte now or 1.5?
It's probably bigger now. Yeah, I know 1 terabyte for sure.
Yes.
Yeah.
But I mean, the cameras are amazing, and I think that new camera button.
Do you think that's a gimmick or not? I don't know if I would use it. Quite honestly,
I would use it. Use it. Yeah, I still I haven't upgraded mine, but I'm thinking about it, and I think for me that I record a lot of concerts and a lot of video handheld, which, by the way, the stabilization of those iPhones is crazy. Yeah, it looks like I'm just walking, and it looks like I have gimbal.
Yeah, I think gimbals, you pretty much don't need them anymore.
Yeah,
I don't know.
Because like even with the new Sony cameras, they have the 5-axis stabilization, so IVIS in camera. So you have all the stabilization that you'll need, and then there's lenses that also have image stabilization. So it's that the times where shaky footage used to be a thing, that's it's not anymore. It's a thing of the past.
Yeah, but almost that also becomes another tool, right? If you're telling a story, you may want to have that shakiness or whatever. We'll get into one of my picks here about the movies, and I'll see if you think the same thing I did. But I think they use some of those tools to tell the story.
Yeah, so a good example is the movie The Creator. I don't think we talked about that, but The Creator is a movie that was shot on the Sony FX3, which is the equivalent of the Sony A7S III, but it's just on the film, format or the video format. And it was shot also externally into an external device. They would shoot proxies into the camera itself, but the reason I'm bringing this movie up is because they used this tool because they wanted to keep the budget very low. They also wanted to be able to move in places it's hard to move a bigger rig. So you were able to rig this, FX3 really high up and still get some really good footage.
Okay. Very cool. So should we start like maybe your top movies? Do you want
Yeah.
to share yours or you want me to go first? What do you think?
Let's go. You go first. Yeah.
All right. So if we started about like filming and choices about, gimbal versus not, maybe we can start about blink twice, right? Because if you ask me, the way that they did some of the framing and the way that the shakiness, like even though like the scenery is beautiful, right? They go to this island, everything looks good.
Yeah.
But you're watching the movie and you're like, something's not right. Right? They don't follow like the rule of thirds.
No.
It's kind of shaky, the way they frame stuff. I don't know. I kind of picked up on that, and I think that they use that as a tool. What do you think?
Oh yeah, definitely. And not only that, but the colors so rich. They make you feel like, oh, this is like a Warren movie. It's
Right.
the type of those type of films. It took me back to kind of like the Kodak years. Those very rich colors, very colorful.
Because
And-
at first you're like, it's beautiful, this island, everything looks magical, right?
yeah.
But then you start noticing like something's really off here. Right?
Very off, yeah.
Yeah.
For a minute, I was like, I wonder where this is going, because you try to guess
Yeah.
where the story is going, because you're probably, I don't know if you're one of those movie watchers that go to the movies and start thinking about what, how it's going to end or where it's going, and then you start creating your movie within the movie itself. So it started to get into the point where like, where's it going? Where's it going? But yeah, definitely, I think I did not see the ending. When it came, I was like, oh wow.
And we're talking, this is like Zoe Kravitz, like first like directorial debut. And I think she's also like a co-writer for the script, right?
Right.
Yeah.
I heard or I saw that she's been sitting on this script for more than 10 years, something like that. So it's, I mean, if Zoe Kravitz can, get a film made, like in 10 years, imagine what it's like for us mortals.
Right. But the thing to me too, it kind of hits close to home, especially what's going on with the news right now with Diddy and everything. If you think about it, like everything that's happening in the island, like it's kind of crazy, right?
Oh, yeah.
Like, I don't know if there's spoilers. I mean, you should have seen it by now.
Yeah, I think you should have seen it by now. So
but if not,
blink
maybe
twice.
just like, hey, like, click off or whatever.
Yeah, but if you're feeling danger, blink twice.
Yeah, exactly. But I think, the whole thing with like the perfume and then the snakes and everything, like there's a lot of correlation with what we've seen in the news and all the craziness that's been happening in Hollywood, right?
Yeah, so sometimes it's true what they say, right? Fiction is, or is it the other way around?
Yeah, I don't know at this point, right? But that was definitely one of my favorite. Like I said, I really liked the way that it was shot because to me, it was like, this is beautiful. It looks great. But then you're like, something is off. Something's not right. I wouldn't go to the island.
Oh, yeah.
And then you start to figure out why and everything, right?
And then everything started making sense. Like all those loose ends that start coming together.
Yeah. So definitely that was one of mine. And this one I have to be careful with because I don't want to say the name 3 times. And it's already said twice in the title, right?
Right.
So it's Beetlejuice, right? And which is like the sequel. I don't want to say it again because who knows what will happen, right?
I know, right?
The thing about that one, what I liked is that they didn't go crazy with the CGI and the effects because if you want to tell that story going from like the past one to this one, you don't want it to be a crazy thing, right? So I don't know. You haven't watched it.
But I have 2 words for you. Monica Bellucci.
That's true. Yeah.
The one and only.
Yeah. And I thought also Jenna Ortega was
my God.
amazing. Like, I know she might have like felt like maybe she's getting typecast or something because she was Wednesday, but she's like the perfect person for that role. I mean, she did great on that. So what I liked about it too is like there's more than one storyline happening. In the first one, it was just like, hey, we've got these ghosts living in our house or whatever. How do we get rid of them? But this one, there's also a love story. There's a story going on with Jenna Ortega. I'm ruining it for you.
No. It's in my top 10 films to watch before the end of the year for sure.
Yeah, because the first one had like a simple plot, right? Like
Yep.
it was just like, we've got these ghosts. How do we get rid of them? And this one, it's like multiple stories happening. And also like, I think just like Michael Keaton, man, he's still great, dude. Like,
He's the best, man. He's the GOAT.
like he's not even in that many scenes, but when he's there, just like the amount of impact that he has, like in the short little, like he comes in and out throughout the movie. I think he does that on the first one too.
Yeah, and it's crazy to go back to 1998 when the first one came out, and it was because of that movie that almost he didn't get the Batman role.
Boy, I didn't know that.
Because everybody saw him as a comedian.
Okay.
And so they didn't want to bring him back as like, who? I mean, why is he gonna play? It's like if you were wanting to cast like Jim Carrey, like in in the role of
that
Batman.
makes sense.
That's what they
Yeah.
thought of him back then.
Yeah.
And then he, of course, knocked it out of the park.
Yeah. I don't know how old he is, but man, he's still
77.
no way. He still did an amazing
Yeah.
job. So
Yeah.
for sure that one. The next one on my list is Challengers. You've seen that one,
I've seen
right?
that one, yeah.
What, I'll let you sort of tell me your perspective first.
So the music.
Yeah.
The music was, we saw it in the movie theater, and the music was just pumping in your ears, and along with the cinematography, and of course the acting. The acting, I mean, Zendaya, I mean, it's just amazing. Anything she does, all the roles and the characters that she, gets herself into. And then, of course, the story and the cinematography, just going back to those, tennis scenes, with the glass at the bottom, you could see the players. I mean, it's
Pretty
just
cool.
It's so cool. Like the way you would think, like, oh yeah, they've done anything they could do for cinematography wise.
Mm-hmm.
There's always something else you can do, and that movie definitely had some amazing shots and the music. I mean, talk about the music.
Yeah, I mean, I think it definitely, like, the music kind of like is like almost like another character, if you ask me, because it sets the vibe for like every scene. And I think just like Beetlejuice, there's multiple sort of scripts that are happening along the way, right? Because you've got this love triangle, then you've got the story behind the tennis player. She got injured. Right now she wants to develop this other person, right? So there's like multiple angles and you're following all these storylines at the same time.
Oh yeah. Yeah.
So that was on my list. And then Civil War. I think you've watched Civil War.
We saw
right?
Civil War, yes.
Yeah.
And
What did you think?
first of all, from the war perspective, the way that these soldiers are being embedded into like a sort of a civilian, environment. Here in the States, first of all, it's just for me it was very impactful. I'm a veteran. I was in the Iraqi War. Did 2 tours of combat over there, and so it brought back a lot of memories, and of course it did a lot to me more than other films with the reality on how things were shot and the soldiers that were portrayed there, and how the reporters were embedded in those, some of those militias, and how some of those reporters will go from scene to scene, and how they were just following the action, trying to get the perfect shot. And so, again, going back to the cinematography, I think it was amazing, the way those long shots, and then, of course, having those cameras, the 35 millimeter film cameras. I mean, they just added so much more to it.
Art mimics like reality, right? Like right now, the world is pretty crazy right now for everybody in actual life. So this one, like if you sort of pay attention, there's a lot of correlation there as well. Did you feel like that?
Oh yeah, absolutely. I think the divide and how sometimes you don't even know what you're fighting for.
Yeah.
But you're fighting there and still. So I think the storyline was very well put, and how the characters were always in the search of the perfect shot. The perfect, moment.
I was wondering if it was going to be like a left versus right, how they were going to tell the story, but I don't really think it got too political. I think it's more about the human race.
Yeah.
Did you feel the same way?
I think so too, yeah. Because I think that's, I don't know if it's a missed opportunity, but they could have probably dig a little bit deeper than that. I think because, again, it's happening now in real life. And I think the divide is there, and there's a lot of people that are very left or very right, and there's not a common ground. It's hard to find that common ground.
They're filming these reporters that are going along road trip, trying to get to their destination. And sometimes something crazy would happen and you're wondering, okay, where is this going to happen? Like, surely they're going to go like down this rabbit hole, right? But then they just get back in the car and they travel, right? So I don't know how you felt about the editing, but sometimes it felt like there was something really big about to happen and they just cut away and they just continue on the trip.
Yeah, it really felt like a road movie.
Yeah.
Sort of like an independent road movie, like from back in the, late 90s.
Yeah.
So it's you're right. It was kind of hard to follow that. But definitely, I think it had a very slow pace, and sometimes it's every film is different. I think this film definitely could have had a little more of a faster pace. I think maybe dig a little bit deeper into the other characters' backstories, because I feel like we didn't get to really see their backstories.
True. some of those things they could elaborate it a bit more. But overall, I think it was a great movie.
Oh my God, yes. And Jesse Plemons, even though he's there like for like
Right.
2 minutes.
Yeah, good. Just goes to show you, right? Like if you nail it, it doesn't matter. The impact is still going to be there, right?
Great casting.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
So that was my list. I think, for future stuff that I want to see, honestly, for 2025, there's not a whole lot just yet from what I've seen. I'm kind of curious about the Snow White movie with Gal Gadot. I don't know what that's going to happen. Or,
I hear there's a lot of backlash with the casting. Again, the casting.
right? So that's, I don't know. I'm looking forward to hearing what you're looking forward to see for 2025. But let's get into your movies. What have been your favorites?
My top, so far, 2024, I think my top one for sure is Romulus, Alien Romulus.
Okay.
I think that movie, of course, is directed by Fede Alvarez from Uruguay. And the cinematographer is Mexican, Galo Olivares.
Mm-hmm.
He's the same guy who should have gotten a recognition for helping or being the camera operator for Alfonso Cuarón for Roma.
So
he's
that's an amazing film.
Yeah, Roma. I mean, talk about like the cinematography behind that film. And Galo Olivares only got the credit as a camera operator. Kind of the guy and Alfonso Cuarón is the one who did the cinematography, but he was also directing, so it's kind of hard to separate those two.
Yeah.
So I would have liked Gallo to get more recognition for that film, but I think that got him into bigger and better films, and so he did the cinematography now for Alien Romulus, and it's amazing. I mean, the cinematography is great. Again, the cast, it's an ensemble cast. There's a lot of complaints because they're a younger cast. They're trying to appeal to the younger generations, the younger audience to kind of bring back the kind of to bridge that gap between the two generations, right? The original Alien came out in 1979, and then of course there's some sequels in between.
Yeah, not so great, by the way.
Aliens were directed by James Cameron. Actually, that was actually pretty good. Alien 3, not so much. And Alien 4, it's it's watchable, but it's definitely lost.
It's hard to build out sequels, right?
Yeah, exactly. And especially when it's like, how many more? It's like even Ridley Scott said, it's like, why do we have to keep going back to the same creature? Why can't we expand on the universe of Alien, but still have it there? But there's so much more to talk about, and that's why in 2012 Ridley Scott came back, not to direct an Alien film, but like, sort of like a prequel called Prometheus, which is an amazing film. To me, it's one of my favorite Ridley Scott films. And then a few years later, in 2017, he came out with Alien Covenant, with Demian Bichir is in it in that film. Again,
so for a filmmaker question for you, what's the difference between a director and a DP? For the viewers out there, or is it the same thing?
No.
There's some shared responsibilities, but I don't know how you feel.
Well, not necessarily. Of course, the director is the king on the set.
Yeah.
He's the one with the vision. He's the one who probably it depends. If it's an independent film, the director is where the buck stops. With the shot, or how does the saying goes?
Yeah, where the buck stops.
Yeah, exactly. So he's the king of the set. But if you're a studio, then probably the studio got a director and hire a director, and then the director hires, his crew, or if there's push from the studio, then he may have to hire somebody else, or, it depends. But let's say we're an independent film and I'm the director of my film. I'm going to be the one in charge of talking to the actors, making sure they get their emotions, their marks, where they need to stand, where they need to come into the frame. That's part of directing the actors, but also overall look of the film, right? So I'm going to have direct talks with my DP, director of photography, or cinematographer, which is only the only other person on set that has the title of director. There's the director, which is the king of the set, and then the director of photography, which is my cinematographer, the guy who handles the camera and the lenses and
so
the light.
DP is more technical versus
Exactly.
a director is more like vision, art. This is the story I'm trying to tell.
Exactly, yes.
Okay.
I don't know, like a good example of a great director is, probably one of my favorite directors. He directed 2001 Space Odyssey. He directed The Shining, Stanley Kubrick, he had a very interesting way to direct. He would do hundreds of takes. He would do things to the actors to get them into that space, into the emotion. I mean, they say that when he was directing The Shining, after that film was made, the lead actors kind of went a little crazy after that for all the pressure and the tension that was created on the film. So directors tend to be a little more creative, more artistic, more crazy sometimes. Whereas the director of photography or the cinematographer, they're more on the technical side. They know how to light a scene. They know how to move the camera in a dolly or a crane and stabilizer, those sorts of things. So
I've wondered about that because the DPs do have some say of like, hey, maybe we should like do a zoom in here or whatever, right? Like a pan or whatever. So they have some say, but like you're saying, like the director is like where the buck stops, right?
Exactly. It's like, let's go back to the Roma example. Alfonso Cuarón he loves to work with the GOAT, Chivo Lubezki, who's won 3 Oscars for movies, different movies, and he's worked with Cuarón, and Cuarón wanted Chivo Lubezki to direct, to be on the cinematographer for Roma, but he was scheduled to work on another project, so that's why he took the reins, and he's like, nobody else is gonna, be the DP of my movie other than Chivo Lubezki, so he took it upon himself to be the DP. But of course, he had Galo Oliveros, who actually should have gotten the credit for DP. But that's another story.
Sorry for the rabbit hole, but I had to ask you that question.
We had to. I love that film. I think Alien Romulus, going back to bringing it back to Alien Romulus, I think it's a great film that kind of bridges the gap between the original film and then for the new audiences to kind of put it back in the map, back in our purview, because there's been other projects that had been kind of axed. Again, the studio owns the intellectual property, the IP. So they're the ones who actually decide what to do with it. And now that Disney bought Fox Studios, they are the ones and owners of Alien.
Yeah, that makes sense. What's the next movie on your list?
Okay, so Kinds of Kindness, directed by the another one of our my wife and I. We love all of his movies. Kinds of Kindness was the one that came out this year. Last year, he came out with the movie, again, with Emma Stone. What's the name of that movie? Oh, my God. I'm drawing a blank. But anyways, he's got it's a Greek filmmaker. He's got a great filmography. And this movie just came out in Cannes this year, and it was a great film. Amazing cinematography. It was basically like 3 short films in one, but utilizing the same actors. So the same actors were on all 3 short films within this major film. And again, they all play different characters in all these 3 short films.
Yeah. And would you say the storyline is sort of commingled between or no separate?
They're all separate, but they all have to do with human emotions and human relationships. And so that's one of the things that Yorgos Lanthimos, that's the name of the director. His way of directing and his storyline is very how would you say it? It's not it's I don't know, it's not creepy, but his sense of humor is very dark. Let's just say that. He's the director from The Lobster and The Killing of a Sacred Deer. Okay. And so all of those films have to do a lot with human emotions and the extremes of humanity, of how we react to certain things around ourselves. So yeah, definitely that movie. It's in my top 10 from so far. Another one I would say is Challengers.
That made your list?
Yeah, that definitely made my list. I think it's one of the best films of the year so far, for sure. And again, Dune Part 2. That one came out really early in the year, which is kind of surprising for that type of film. But yeah, I think Timothée Chalamet and Zendaya, and of course we have Spanish actor. Oh my God, what's his name?
Who are you thinking about?
I'm thinking. Yep. Javier Bardem. How can I forget him? Yeah. So he's in Dune Part 2, and he's, I mean, amazing. The story, the cinematography. Again, going back to cinematography, that's one of the things that I enjoy the most. You know, when we go see a film, the way that it's shot, the colors, you know, the way the camera moves, and then of course, you know, the type of movements that they do.
Yeah.
You know, sometimes they're handheld, sometimes they're steady on a gimbal, or they're on a dolly. So those type of things, I'm always, you know, very curious to know what they're gonna do when the new film comes out.
For this one, do you have to be invested in the series? Like, you kind of have to watch the first one to understand, right?
Yeah, you definitely. I think for Dune Part 2, you definitely have to watch the first one because it literally picks up right where the first part left off. So you have to at least have seen it once to kind of know where it's going from
So
there.
you kind of have to be a fan of the series in order to enjoy it, probably. Because if you
think
just
so.
go watch Dune 2, you're gonna be like, I don't get it.
Yeah, what is this? What am I watching? Yeah, because you don't have to read the books. It's one of those things that you don't have to read the book series, but definitely have to at least watch the first one. Don't watch the one from the 80s. I don't recommend that one. That one is not, you know, really that good. They hasn't aged that well.
Okay. What else is on your list?
So another one on my list for sure is I think The Substance. I don't know if you heard of it.
No, tell me about that.
So The Substance is about this actress who's basically done or has aged out of the system, of the Hollywood system. And so she's turned, I think, 55. And for Hollywood, that's it for actresses, for female actresses. And so there's, without saying too much, there's a substance that she gets a hold of, and she's able to become young again.
Interesting.
Very interesting story. But it's actually a body horror film. So do not eat food while you watch this movie, because it's very,
pretty graphic.
It's very graphic, very graphic. Yes, very graphic. It's not for kids for sure. And again, it's a French director, and this movie came out in Cannes as well this year. Another movie that came out in Cannes this year is Anora, which that movie still hasn't come out in movie theaters here in the States, but definitely looking forward to seeing that film. I think it's going to come out in 2024 for sure.
Okay.
It's from Sean Baker. He's the director of the Florida Project. It's an amazing filmmaker, and I'm just so excited to see this film. And then there's another film that came out of Cannes as well. It's called Emilia Perez with Selena Gomez and what's her name? She was the actress in. She's Colombian. Zoe Saldana. Zoe Saldana. So she's in that movie as well, and then this movie came out of Cannes as well. So those three movies, Substance, have been in my radar ever since. And of course, when a movie debuts in Cannes, or when they premieres in Cannes, it takes a few months for it to get back in the States. So yeah.
Okay, very cool. What about for 2025? What are you looking forward to?
Man, for 2025, I think, actually for 2024, Joker 2, Folie à Deux, that's on the top of my list. I'm a huge, Joaquin Phoenix fan, and Lady Gaga, everything they do, I think it's been really, really good. There's hits and misses, for both of them, for Joaquin Phoenix, and of course, he's recently been in the news for I think like 5 days before actual filming started in Mexico. They were going to film a new movie. He decided not to do it anymore, and so he left them hanging with a lot of money already spent and money that they owed to the crew and cast.
No way.
And so he just dropped out. And he's like, no, I'm not going to do it anymore. Like 5 days before they started filming.
Just because he's just like, I'm not feeling
it. And so actually Joaquin Phoenix is one of those actors that they're not insurable anymore. Like even like in Hollywood, there's a thing for that. Like they're not able to insure those actors because they know that they're very, one day they can just.
So imagine you're trying to get the budget for your film, and then they see like Joaquin Phoenix like on your cast. It might be.
And you start getting nervous. Yeah, it's very sketchy. Yeah, I mean, but he is great. He's great. And we'll see if he makes history, getting another nomination and getting a second Oscar for a sequel for another film that already has gotten an Oscar for the same character. So this is the only film. I should say. Let me rephrase Joker is the only character in a live action film that's gotten 2 Oscars. For, of course, Heath Ledger, he got the posthumous Oscar for The Dark Knight in 2008, and then Joaquin Phoenix for Joker.
But those guys are amazing, and the trailer looks great. I mean, the trailer doesn't show a whole lot, but it shows enough to where you're like, okay, this character is going to be really cool.
Oh my God, yes! And then Lady Gaga, going crazy with him. So some people have complained that it's going to be a musical. Well, it's it's music. I mean, it's nice. I mean, it's nice to change it up a bit. It doesn't have to be a full on drama. Every time. So we'll see. And of course, Todd Phillips. He's great. He's a great director.
Okay, so we've got Joker, and then any other big project you think?
There's another one coming up. It's called, I don't know if it's going to come out at the end of the year, Nosferatu, which is, of course, the story with Dracula, and it's looking forward to it. It seems like it's going to be really interesting.
Some big names in that, or no?
Yes, for sure. We have William Dafoe is in it, so we'll see. He never disappoints.
Yeah.
And then there's another small film that I'm so looking forward to. It's called Your Monster, which is a Melissa Barrera film. If you're a fan of the Scream series, you should know that Melissa Barrera was kind of the one that brought back Scream.
90s Scream.
Yeah, the OG Scream with Neve Campbell. There was a Scream 5 and a Scream 6 that she was the lead actress.
Okay.
Of course, the sister is Jenna Ortega. But after she made some comments when with Israel and Palestine, when the war started, when they broke out, she made some comments, and then she got basically fired from Scream 7. And then a little bit after that, after she left or she got fired, then Jenna Ortega also left the project. So Scream 7, Neve Campbell's coming back, but we'll see, how that goes. But I think that movie's not coming until 2025. But Your Monster with Melissa Barrera, which she also came out in Abigail, which was a vampire horror film. I think she did amazing. I think she doesn't get the credit she deserves. I think she's up and coming. She's been doing great films, great box office, which in the end, for any good actor, you have to do good at the box office. Right. Otherwise, you're not going to get cast again. Yeah. She's definitely doing really good. So Melissa Barrera, keep an eye out for her. She's definitely, I think, in my opinion, one of the most prolific Mexican actresses in Hollywood right now.
Yeah, that's a great segue, because another question I had for you is, what I'm seeing is that these short sort of series that are happening in Netflix, to me, that's almost like the new independent movie, right? So I know you had Baby Reindeer on your list. To me, that could have been an independent film.
Oh, yeah,
right?
absolutely.
But instead, they're like making a series out of it. Do you sort of think that that's like the direction we're headed in, where it's like, okay, maybe you can't get the funding for like a movie, but you can do a short series and you can put it on Netflix or whatever?
Oh, yeah, I think so. I think there's definitely a lot of studios who are investing in good quality limited series. I mean, HBO is probably one of the best examples where they put out some of the best limited series. They got Chernobyl. They also have all these short limited documentary series which is like 2 episodes, 4 episodes, so they're very short.
And the production value is crazy.
It's amazing.
I'm sure the budgets are probably just as big as a movie, but I think it's just like they pitch it to, like, it's going to be a series, and all these streaming services are like, like, I want the exclusivity. I want it on my service.
Yeah,
right?
and they don't have to pay the movie theaters, or the movie theaters don't get a cut. They don't have to pay for advertising so much. Maybe they do spend some money on advertising, but it's not as much on TV shows, because once a TV show debuts on Netflix, it becomes number one for weeks and weeks until another show comes on. So I think that's the secret of that, and also they're upping their prices on Netflix. But
that's true. Like every time it's like, hey, we're going to raise our rate.
Even Apple TV Plus. I mean, they started at $4.99, and now they're almost close to $10 a month.
It's crazy.
But yeah, again, going back to your comment, I think so there's a new TV show that's coming up, or that's going to come out in Apple TV Plus, created by Alfonso Cuarón.
Okay.
With a great cast. Sacha Baron Cohen, it's in it, and there's gonna be like an 8-episode series, I think, limited series. And again, it's like it's a movie, but it's spread out in 8 episodes.
Right. So you being a filmmaker, do you think that you would enjoy that versus like a movie? Because I think a series, it lends itself to have like an open ending.
Oh, yeah.
Right. So if you're like, hey, people are really watching this, we can continue to do more of the series versus if you're doing a movie, you kind of have to decide, okay, are we going to cap the story? Are we going to sort of tell the whole story or not? Right.
Yeah.
So you tell me as a filmmaker, which option do you
No,
like?
I would definitely go for the series 100%
Yeah.
because you would get more. Basically, at the end of the day, it's time. How much time do you get to make a movie? You get, for a typical Hollywood movie, you get anywhere between 30 to 60 days.
Yeah.
And 60 days is, we're talking about like $100 million budget. But for a TV show, you're talking about like, you're probably going to spend like about $1 million to $10 million per episode, depending on the studio and the budget of the film.
That's crazy to say, right? Like back in the day, that was like a movie, right? Now you're doing it per episode.
You're doing it per episode, yes.
crazy.
Yeah, I think, forgot what it was, but I think it was one of those Disney Plus shows. I forgot if it was The Mandalorian or that they were spending, I think, the most money per episode.
The other thing, if it's a series, you start to get feedback, right?
Yeah.
So you start to put a few episodes, you see what the reception is, right? A movie, you sort of make the movie, it might be a year or two down the road before you hear, hey, people like it or not. So it kind of gives you feedback too.
Oh, yeah. And then I think TV shows are more, or at least, the ones that are debuted on streaming, they're so easily accessible. Anybody can see that. Everywhere around the world is going to see everybody saw Baby Reindeer. You had all these memes going around the world. It was, for me, it was interesting to see like the Spanish in Mexico, all the memes in Mexico, and then all the memes like in the US.
Yeah.
Very different, but also, similar.
Behavior and mental health and everything, but there's a comedic undertone.
Yes.
Right? How do you feel about that? Do you think it's a cool way to tell a story?
Oh, yeah. I mean, for me, that's one of my favorite comedies. Like, I really like my dark humor, dark comedies is probably my top. It's at the top of my list. Like all those.
Because you try to explain Baby Reindeer to somebody that hasn't watched it, and you sound crazy.
Yeah, exactly. And then they start watching, and you're like, "What am I watching?" Right? But if you're not into that type of comedy, into that type of even the way that the series is structured, the episodes end, and then there's always like a cliffhanger, like a mini cliffhanger. So but it's very interesting.
Yeah. You want to segue to music?
Let's do music.
You want me
There's just one last movie.
One more?
I'm looking forward to Superman 2025.
Okay. Yeah.
So we'll see how James Gunn.
Yeah.
I'm pretty sure he's gonna add a lot of music. Music is gonna be big because all his films have big music soundtracks, like all the Guardians of the Galaxy. Volume 1, 2, and 3.
And it's been a while for Superman, right? So hopefully they nail it.
Yes, the last Superman movie was in 2013, The Man of Steel, and then of course there was never a sequel to that film, which I think it's underrated. I think it's a good film, in my opinion. It's a darker version of very dark Superman, but I think it was still pretty good.
Yeah.
And in 2025, we'll see what James Gunn's version of Superman, is going to look like. So we'll see.
Hip hop wise, there's been a lot of big singles, but not a lot of albums. So on my list, I have Billie Eilish. I don't know if you've listened to her latest album, the Hit Me Hard Soft, but that one,
she just started her tour this week, I think, in Canada. I think.
Yeah. I think her album is a lot more mature. And to me, that's a good and a bad thing, because some of the things that I enjoyed about Billie Eilish when she first came out was that she experimented so much, right? Like if you think about Bad Guy, and like she was mixing all these sounds, and she got Phineas, right? So I think they're the dynamic duo where they can play around. It was like not the typical pop music. It played with hip hop elements. It was like a mix. This latest album, I think it's more mature. It's more like about the lyrics. There's a lot of like songs about broken hearts and stuff like that. Yeah. So I think
Birds of a Feather, man.
Yeah, I really enjoyed it. And of course the song on the Barbie soundtrack, like, man, she nailed that. That was incredible.
Oscar winning performance right there, man.
Yeah, and I think it's even better to see her perform it live than it is on the actual recording, which is crazy.
Yeah, and she's only 23, I think.
Yeah.
So imagine, I mean, it's like, what else can she do in the next, 30 years? Just imagine, it's going to be an amazing career, I think.
Yeah, super talented. I really enjoyed that one. I think it's like more mature, and it's like more of a concept versus like when she first came out. So it'll be interesting to see where she goes next.
Yeah.
So I had that on my list. I had the Black Keys.
Black Keys.
I really liked their sound. When they first came out, I mean, they were super funky.
Mm-hmm.
It almost reminded me if it was like a band from the 70s, right? Like big guitars, big bass. It sounds grungy. It sounds dirty.
Mm-hmm.
So what they're doing now, I think it still has some of those elements, but now they're starting to do collabs, which is kind of cool because I think you can't do the same thing over and over. Like just because it's working, like eventually the fans are going to be like, okay, like I've heard it, right? Like this is like a one-trick pony. So they've got some pretty cool collabs on this latest album. It still sounds vintage, which is kind of their aesthetic. So I really like that one.
Yeah.
I had that one. Of course, I had Kaliuchis. I mean, I think Kaliuchis, she's doing...
Have you seen her perform? I hear her concerts are amazing.
Yeah.
Like the visuals.
Yeah. Because her music, I don't know how you would describe it. To me, it's like psychedelic reggaeton.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, that's what it sounds like to me. I don't know how you would describe it.
It's like the Flaming Lips met, Bad Bunny or very experimental, psychedelic.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I think her voice is almost like, at times, it reminds you of like an old traditional voice that you would hear back in the day.
Yeah.
And then she's mixing that psychedelic reggaeton on top of that. So it's kind of cool. She has a song that's called Como Debe de Ser. So if you haven't heard that song, definitely check out that song.
All right, I'm going to put it up. Was that a single?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, but it's like a perfect mix of like what she does that makes her unique, right? Because I don't think anybody's in that lane that's doing psychedelic and reggaeton. Yeah. I don't think anybody's doing that.
Yeah, her voice is definitely very unique, and her lyrics are also very unique.
Yeah, definitely enjoyed that one. Omar Apollo.
Mm-hmm.
I really enjoyed his stuff. He has a new... So it's interesting with him too. So he's gone from pop to more R&B, more mature sound. His latest song is called Done With You. And I think that's like perfect. Like that's what he needs to be doing. It's like an R&B, right? More mature sound. Are you a fan of Omar Apollo?
You know what? We had tickets to go see him the first time he came to Tower Theater, and then he canceled. And then we weren't able to get him the second time around.
Yeah.
So, but he definitely like him a lot. Yes.
Yeah. Definitely, that was on my list. And then the Red Clay Strays.
Okay, I never heard of them.
Never heard of them. So they're really interesting too because the lead singer, reminds me of Elvis.
Okay.
Like even the way that he speaks in interviews, and then he dresses up every time they perform, like he's in a suit jacket and everything. And they have a unique sound. If you listen to that voice, like you're like, is this like Elvis, younger Elvis? It's really interesting.
Okay, you have to send it to me now.
Yeah,
I'm intrigued.
Their music, I think they're coming to OKC too. So I think they're coming to, I want to say either Beer City or something. Like they're coming here, and it'd be a great show, I think.
Oh yeah,
yeah.
So Red Clay
check them out. It's pretty cool. Their album, I think it's a mix of like country, vintage. Like it's a cool, unique set. And what I think is something that they're doing with social media is they've got a guy that's just following them around. So they do a lot of behind the scenes, a lot of like live versions. So it's not like, cheesy social media. Like if you follow them on social media, it's going to want to make you go check them out on the show.
Okay.
It's really cool.
I have to check them out then for sure.
Yeah. I think they're from Alabama, but definitely the song I would say, if you haven't checked them out, Wanna Be Loved.
Okay.
That would be the song that would say, check it out.
Okay.
Yeah. So that was my list for songs. I think, like I said, more of like different sort of genres versus hip hop. Hip hop had a lot of singles, a lot of big singles, but album wise, there hasn't been a big album.
I think that's just going around the music industry. I think everybody it's easier for them because they want to stay just like social media. It's like if you're not posting, you're not relevant.
True.
So they're coming out with singles every month, every so often, just to kind of stay on the radar, on your release radar.
Yeah.
Do you have a release radar on your Spotify?
I do. Sometimes it's hit or miss.
Yeah.
So same thing with the DJ, the AI DJ.
Oh,
hit or miss.
Yeah, DJ Libby in Español.
Yeah.
That's what I have. I have mine set up. She's from Mexico City.
Oh, yeah.
And it's hit and miss sometimes, yeah. But definitely, I think the release radar sometimes it's definitely like last Friday. Yeah, last Friday was great. Had some great singles there. A new Laura Pausini. I was telling you about this new Laura Pausini single, which is in Italian, and it's like hip hop with like a Italian rap, which sounds amazing. Very cinematic, like her performance. And of course, she's only in there for a few minutes in the song or a few seconds in the song, but it's still very, very powerful. But as far as albums go, Suki Waterhouse, that my wife and I love Suki Waterhouse. We already have tickets to go see her in Dallas.
Is she like BFFs with like Taylor Swift or something? Like
She's
I feel like they're like friends.
I think
or
Taylor
something.
Swift's BFFs with everybody.
Yeah,
She's
that's true.
BFFs
That's true.
with Lana Del Rey. She's BFFs with everybody. And I think that this album that she just came out with, because she started as a model and then an actress, and then she started doing singles, and then eventually came out with an album back in 2019.
Yeah.
And then this latest album, is very. She's from England, so
I was gonna say I love her accent.
The
Every time
accent.
interviews and stuff, I love her accent.
the accents are amazing. Yeah, it's the same thing with her. Reminds me a lot of Paloma Faith, which is also from England, British singer. But Suki Waterhouse just has a more of a younger vibe. I think she's only like 26 or 28. And of course, she's married to the Batman, Robert Pattinson.
Oh, I didn't know.
Yeah,
that.
yeah, they just had a kid. She actually performed at which festival we just had? Was it Coachella, I think?
Mm-hmm.
And she was pregnant, and she performed pregnant.
Oh,
And,
wow.
yeah, she was almost due. It was amazing. And so yeah, because it was the same concert where Lana Del Rey performed
Okay.
for like 12 years. I think there was like a gap of 12 years between the last time she performed and this last time. So yeah, we definitely kept up with all the performers from Coachella, and of course,
Yeah.
Peso Pluma was there
Yeah.
too, which his performance was crazy, man.
Yeah.
Yeah,
he
was.
broke a leg or something recently. too.
Yeah. It's. I mean, I just love seeing like more and more like these new artists, or not new artists, but from different cultures and different languages coming onto like these big festivals.
It's great to see all the unity and everything. It's awesome.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Bad Bunny's been there. Grupo Frontera was there too.
Tucanes.
Tucanes was there. It's like Tucanes de Tijuana. Like, who would have
I
thought?
know, right?
Yeah, and then speaking of which, remember, I don't know if you saw it was all over social media. Metallica's covered Tucanes de Tijuana, La Chona,
Yeah. And Caifanes.
and Caifanes,
Yeah.
and then they covered El Tri, and then La Sonora Santanera.
Yeah, it's funny because the behind the scenes when they were practicing, they were like super nervous, and they're like, we're really nervous. We've never done this before. So they were like super nervous just to perform these songs in front of people.
Now you're a fan of Metallica, right?
Yeah, it's
So
like one of my favorite bands.
what is your favorite song?
Oh man, you put me on the spot. I think the one is probably up there. Enter Sandman. They've got so many. It'd be hard. Like Fuel. Like there's so many. It just depends on like what sort of era of Metallica you want to talk about. But
Yeah, talk about like careers, right?
yeah,
They've been
it's
around for
amazing.
more than 40 years.
Yeah.
Favorite album?
Favorite album? Jeez, I would say, man, probably the Black Album.
The Black Album, yeah, same here.
That would probably be. I mean, it's hard, but I would say probably Black Album.
Yeah.
But they just sound so amazing live too. Like, and if you think about it, that style of big band hardcore rock, there's not very many of them anymore. So I wonder what's going to happen. Like once these guys decide to retire, what's going to happen to that genre of music?
Yeah.
I miss it.
Yeah, definitely. Because there's nothing else that has been even close to, because there's other, metal bands, but there hasn't been a band that has done so much for the genre and around the world.
Yeah.
I mean, because you have other, what they call that, baby metal,
Yeah.
trash
Not the same.
metal. It's
Not
not
the
the
same.
same. It's not
Yeah.
the same. So,
Yeah.
which it's talking about like other bands that are like coming around or coming back, like Linkin Park.
You were telling me about that.
Yeah,
I don't know how I feel about it. Like in a way, I'm glad that they decided to go with the female vocalist, but I think there's still going to be comparisons with her and Chester, just because Chester had such an iconic voice.
Oh yeah,
I mean, whatever she does, like everybody's going to be like, this song, like Chester's like the go.
And then you don't have the lyrics. I mean, he co-wrote a lot of the songs.
Yeah.
It's like you don't have that. And I was listening recently to some of the older albums, and it's just like you could see the pain. There was so much pain in the lyrics, and so I mean, it's gonna be hard to bring that OG feel back.
Yeah. Unfortunately, like those artists, like if you think about Nirvana too with Kurt Cobain, like just that pain and everything that they were going through, it comes out in the performance, the recordings. It's hard to replicate that. I would hate to be in her shoes because everybody's going to be comparing her. I'm sure they're going to start doing some songs that are originals, just her, but of course everybody's going to want to hear the covers of the originals, right?
Of course, yeah. And I think that the first concerts, I think they only have about 2 or 3 new songs with the new singer. But of course, the rest of the set it's all the classics.
Tough.
It's tough, yeah. And even I heard her when they debuted the first concert on YouTube, and you could hear her voice. Like by the end of it was kind of raspy. It's hard.
It's hard, yeah.
Yeah.
She does a good job, but I think nobody's chest her.
Exactly. Yeah. It's gonna be hard.
Yeah. So what else is on your list for music? I know you've had a lot of interesting bands. I like your list because you had Future Islands.
Right? and you never probably heard of them that much, or
not much. Like I've heard some of their stuff, and we were talking about they were in Dallas recently, right?
Yeah, at the famous Longhorn Ballroom.
Yeah, but how would you describe them? Sort of like a synth, sort of like retro band. I don't know how you would describe them.
It's hard because I guess their sound is not dance.
Yeah,
because they always play with real drum, but it's like a drum and bass. They don't have guitars. It's synths. So there's only 4 players. There's the drummer, the synth keyboardist, and then the bass player, and then the lead singer, Samuel Herrick. He is probably one of the best live performers I've seen by a long shot.
You were telling me that it was super energetic, which I would have thought, right?
Yeah.
Because if you listen to the music, you wouldn't think that the guy would be jumping around
and just acting and performing. And every song that he tells is like this. He writes most of the songs, all the songs actually, and he just gets into the character of every song.
Okay,
and so it's just amazing. It's like, my wife is probably a bigger fan than I am, but I started to listen to them because of her. She would always play the Future Islands albums in the background, and when she's working out or when she's just in the house, and then I started listening to them, and the lyrics, man, they tell always a story, and there's always like
they're pretty deep lyrics. Like some of them are like kind of like sad lyrics too. I would say
there's a song that it's a slow song that he composed for. It's called The Sickness. It's about COVID and about how, all the families got, separated and all the things that we went through or everybody went through. So anybody can relate to those type of lyrics. And it's a slow song. It's one of their few slow songs because they have some slow songs. And it's really, really cool. Like the way they play those songs live. You would think it's a very small sound because there's only the drums, bass, and the synths.
Yeah.
But it's very. Of course they got backing tracks, of course, because they want it to sound like the album. Of course, when they record an album and you have more musicians in the studio, you can do more things. But when you're playing live, there's only 4 guys and they can only do so much. But of course, that's.
Yeah.
If you're a musician, if you know about music, you know about backing tracks, and so it fills up the stage even more so than you would think.
So you would recommend catching them live for sure?
I would definitely recommend catching them live. We actually catch their last show of their tour, and so they were like basically ending their tour, and so they also had this other band opening their act. It's called O Rose from Portland. It's a female singer, and they were actually pretty good. And so I started following them too. O Rose. They had a collab and on the live tour because Future Islands did a collab with another female singer, and so they did it on stage. Awesome. So that was pretty good.
Very cool. Who else is on your list?
Let's see. So there's this Mexican band that I kind of started to fall in love again with. It's called Enjambre. I knew and heard this band probably like in the early 2000s. Enjambre, it's a band from originally from the state of my home state, Zacatecas, from Fresnillo.
Okay.
But they got together in the States and California. And so then they started writing this music and then became really popular in Mexico.
I was trying to describe it to you. I was like, it's kind of like a jazz orchestra. And you're like, it's like Santanera.
It's danzón.
It's danzón. I was like, oh, that makes sense.
Exactly. Yeah. And if you see their because this album, they got it basically, all of the songs are on YouTube now, and then you can see the live performance. And then they even dressed as the old vintage, Santaneras from the 50s and the 60s.
Really cool vibe.
Really cool vibe. Yes. And the singer, there's something about him. It's like, he's not, you can tell he's not the greatest singer or performer, but there's something about his voice, the el timbre, it's something. And so I really liked, and then they're touring the States. And so we're going to go see him in Dallas. And
Awesome.
not only are we going to see them, but they're bringing on Juan Son, which is another artist, great composer, performer, who started out in the band Porter in Guadalajara. They're from Mexico as well. So anyways, they parted ways, and Juan Son went to go on a solo career. But he's just one of these artists that are very out there. Like, he's very humble, but he writes these amazing lyrics, and he's got an amazing voice. And I'll send you one of his songs. It's
Yeah, we're always sending each other music. Like, hey, check it out.
Yeah.
It's pretty cool.
And so definitely looking forward to Enjambre's live performance. I'm hoping they do the danzón version and not like the regular like pop version, because sometimes you don't know what you're gonna get on these tours. But hopefully we can get that danzón tour. I would love to see them like bring that and see them live.
Yeah, perfect. Yeah, I really enjoyed that one. Who else rounded out your list?
Oh man, again, like you said, there's a lot of singles that came out this year, and there's really not like, I listen to a lot of rock pop in Espanol, and of course like there's I've been listening to a lot of the new. It's hard. I mean, it's they've been calling it like corrido sad, or they call it like tumbado sad, kind of like Yaritza en su esencia. There's Javi. There's
Have you heard of Delilah?
No, I have not heard of Delilah. Okay.
Her voice is amazing. I'll send you a track.
Okay, yes,
Yeah,
please.
Her track, like, I think she used to sing like mariachi. She's super young.
Yeah.
And her voice, once you hear her voice, like,
Really?
iconic.
Okay.
It's really cool.
Okay, I'm gonna be looking forward to that then. Yeah. And then but I think as far as albums goes, I think that it's hard, like there's not that many Shakira's album, of course, like Mujeres No Lloran, and I think that's one of her greatest albums. It's hard because she's got some really good albums, and then she's got some really, really good albums, and I think this one is for sure one of the better ones.
Mm-hmm. Very cool.
Yeah.
Man, well, I enjoyed the conversation. I think we could be here all night. So I think we should do this more often, because we've got this big old list. It's hard to get through everything.
Yeah,
right?
yeah. And then next time we gotta talk about technology, man. All these new gadgets. I was looking at your glasses, your ear. What are they, like VR glasses?
No, so it's like, they're called the Meta Ray-Bans.
Okay.
Right, and they've got built-in AI.
Wow.
So you could say like, "Hey Meta, what am I looking at?" And it can translate. Like, if you're looking at a different language, it could tell you like, "Hey, you're looking at an Apple or whatever." So it has built-in AI. It has built-in headphones. It has a built-in camera and video, and they look like regular Ray-Bans.
Yeah.
So that's the thing that I like. They don't look nerdy.
Yeah, or they don't look like the Google glasses. Remember when
Right,
the Google glasses
exactly.
came out?
Exactly.
You could tell they had a camera in there.
Yeah, these look like regular Ray-Bans, and it's funny to see like Meta is now, I think, doing cooler stuff than Apple.
Yeah.
I don't know how you feel about that. That's kind of controversial, but man, they're pushing the envelope, and I think Apple's kind of getting comfortable, and they're not really trying to experiment as much.
Oh yeah, I think they're getting. Yeah, I think that's the right word. I think comfortable. They're getting too comfortable, with the releases. There hasn't been an exciting release since the iPhone 10.
Yeah,
I think.
Yeah, and these glasses, they roll out updates all the time. So they're getting better and better.
Yeah.
And the built-in AI, just think about it, having AI on your glasses. And you can get, like, if you wear normal glasses, you can get transitions.
Yeah.
So you can wear them all the time, and you can just be like, hey,
Wow.
hey, Meta, whatever question you want to ask, and you've got an AI assistant right there with you. Yeah.
Without even, getting your phone out.
Yeah. Yeah, which is cool too. Like if you're like at an event or whatever, you can live stream. I've done that where I'm DJing and I go live on Instagram, and it's just like POV from your glasses and your hands free.
Yeah, I seen that. Yeah, I seen your. Remember, I asked you like, "Why are you
You're like, what are you
filming
recording?
with?"
You thought
like,
I had like a
I
camera?
saw your hand on your wheel, and then your hand pointing at your car stereo. I was like, "Why are you filming
What is he
with?
doing?
Like a GoPro?"
Yeah, it's funny, dude. That's probably one of my favorite pieces of tech. I would say that and the Osmo Pocket 3.
Oh yes,
That has been like my favorite two tech gadgets that are game changers,
Yeah.
especially if you create content or even if you just want to like document for like your own personal stuff. those two things, I think you could just put it in your pocket easily and you can capture whatever.
Oh, that's awesome. I love that. Oh, speaking of tech, I just wanted to, say that your new set is amazing, man. It's, great. The lights, the cameras, man. Definitely improvement, man. I love it. I love it.
Thank you so much. That means a lot coming from you because you definitely know what you're talking about.
The lighting is definitely amazing. Yeah.
Thank you so much. What about you? Favorite pieces of tech before we sign off or what?
Well, I think definitely the iPhone 16. I think definitely a really good piece of tech. I don't think it's a game changer. Mm-hmm. I don't think it's gonna change anything, but I think just definitely it's an improvement, an improved version, sort of a firmware update of the previous phone, which I think a lot of people are gonna love. But I think the iPhone 17, we'll see, and we'll see if they keep the name change. We'll see how that goes.
Definitely. Yeah. Well, anytime you want to come back to the podcast, the door's open.
Thank you.
Enjoy the conversation. I think it's awesome. Talk about what we're into because I think a lot of the times like, hey, have you checked out this artist? No, I haven't. Yeah. Definitely. All right, there you have it, ladies and gentlemen. The super talented Rogelio Almeida on the Maverick Podcast.
Thank you.
In dreams we trust.